So this is Ryan from Now Gamer, and I'm joined today by Josh from gamesTM.
How's it going, Ryan? Good to be here.
And you've seen Thief.
Yeah, they took us out to Canada to go to the Eidos Montreal studios to see the new Thief game after many years in development.
And what did you see exactly?
So they sat us down for a couple of days. They gave us a nice half an hour, 45-minute presentation, giving us a look at the new world of Garrett.
So before we get into the new Thief game, just a quick recap on the previous Thief games, which started with Thief the Dark Project in 1998. Have you played it?
Yeah, I played a little bit from Looking Glass Studios. Obviously, while console gamers were getting excited for Metal Gear, we've got this whole first-person sort of stealth game came for PC gamers, and it's a classic in its own regard.
And what about the sequel? Did you play much of that?
Yeah, Thief 2 is, I think, the game that most people will be familiar with from the Thief series. It really took the ideas and concepts that the first one presented and took them into a whole new realm that lots of gamers have enjoyed, although they haven't aged particularly well, so I guess not a lot of people have gone back and played them.
And then there was Thief Deadly Shadows, which came out on Xbox and PC, I think. And have you played that one as well?
Yeah, that one was a little bit different. The game changed hands to Iron Storm, and they also included a third-person perspective mode that you could play through the game. A lot of players, legacy players, found issue with that because it changed the dynamic of play. Instead of having to sneak through the shadows, you sort of got a new perspective on the world, which didn't resonate, particularly well. So thankfully they ditched that for the new Thief game, and they're going back to basics, back to its roots.
So there's no third person at all?
There's a little bit of third person. Sometimes you can jump down from buildings and it'll give you like this really dynamic third person perspective as you sort of jump down and club people on the head. And again, while you're sort of swinging between, rappelling between buildings and up walls, they'll put third person in there so you can see where you're going. But apart from that, it's all first person all the time.
And before we see the trailer for the Thief Reboot, did you know this even existed?
Do you know, I've never seen this before. It looks like the greatest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm not really sure what the crazy, creepy eyes are doing at the top of the screen, but it looks like something I'd want to play, Maybe
yeah, so I mean, this was like a mobile game before smartphones were a thing. I think it came out just after Deadly Shadows. This is actually Thief Deadly Shadows. There were two mobile games that was kind of split into two episodes released on it, but it's really hard to find information on it, actually.
Yeah, I'd really like to see this on, Xbox Live Arcade, some leaderboards.
No, you wouldn't. No, I would play this on
awesome,
Xbox
man.
Live Arcade.
I'd be well up for this. Give me some achievements on this.
And from a mobile game straight to a CGI trailer. So does this actually, obviously you've seen the game in action, does this CGI trailer actually tell us anything interesting at all about the game?
To be honest, it looks quite different from what we've actually seen, although Thief being, one of the first purely next generation games, it does look fantastic, so this does give you quite a good idea of what to expect. It's all obviously draped in shadow, there's some scary looking guards patrolling the city, and Garrett sort of slinking around in darkness. So pretty much exactly what you'd expect.
I mean, are there any gameplay mechanics seen here that are in the final game as well? I mean, obviously it's still a game about stealing stuff, but...
I think the interesting thing is this trailer sort of dives between, these third-person perspectives and these really dynamic looks where he's, jumping through that window. The important thing to look at is his hands. His hands were something they were very sort of eager to make sure people, recognize. When you're walking around, sort of buildings, you put your hands on walls to gain leverage, and that's an element that really drags you into the world.
Garrett's back, I take it?
Yep, Garrett is back. Obviously, a big part of the series. They've brought him back. They've sort of been a bit cagey on whether or not it's completely the old Garrett and whether any story elements are going to carry across. He obviously used to have a mechanical eye that played a big role in helping you navigate around the world. But if you notice sort of carefully in this concept art, he's got a discolored eye. And he also has focus in the game, which lets you take the role of a master thief. So they've put that element in. They haven't said how it's going to sort of play into the story, but sounds a bit supernatural, to be honest.
So as this is a reboot, is this going back to, I guess, the origins of Garrett? How's it going to play out in terms of that?
Yeah, I mean, when the gameplay demo starts, I assume it was somewhere near the start of the game. He's hiding in a cart, and he's talking about how he's been away from the city for a long time. So it does give the impression that he's been there before, and that maybe it does tie into sort of the history and legacy of the series. So really, what they want to do is just respect the pillars of what's come before while building a completely new experience from the ground up. So, it is old Thief, but with a new sort of next-gen sheen, I guess.
I know one of the trademark, I guess, symbols of Thief has always been the water arrows. They're back in this, I presume. I know we've seen it in one of the screenshots.
Yeah, all of the arrows are back. Garrett's got a really cool retractable bow that we actually saw in motion. They hired a blacksmith out in Montreal to recreate Garrett's bow. We had a little chance to mess around with that, actually, so it proper retracts out as you swing your arm out. Interestingly as well, the bow that they designed actually fed back into the game design. So when they saw that the one they designed for the game didn't work properly, they redesigned it and did all that cool stuff. So the arrows are back. They haven't really said which ones will be coming back, but the rope arrows will apparently make an appearance at some point. So that should quell some fan outcry for the time being.
And obviously, being Eidos Montreal, they worked on Deus Ex, which had third-person takedowns, and
Yep.
I read from your preview that's a feature in this as well.
That is a feature in this. If Garrett is a thief, not a master assassin, so he is supposed to stick to the shadows, but obviously combat can't be avoided all the time. So sometimes you do get the option of doing a third-person takedown, which thankfully look a bit more animated than they did in Deus Ex. So they look really cool. In the example we got, he was standing on top of a building. He shot an arrow at a statue, which fell on someone and crushed them, at which point he jumped down on the other guard and sort of smashed his head in with the blackjack, which was pretty cool.
Jesus, you're not supposed to grin when you say things like that.
Well, I can't help it, I love a bit of violence.
Jesus. Is it action heavy then, or is it still very much a stealth game?
It's still very much a stealth game at heart. For the most part, he did sort of sneak through shadows and stick to shadows and pickpocket and steal anything he could, but, sometimes combat can't be avoided.
And a lot of the screenshots and art they've shown focuses on this area, so tell us a bit about this place.
Yeah, this is the House of Blossoms area. It's a sort of underground bordello for the rich and famous of the city. A lot of people were complaining that it maybe looked too bright in the screenshots, where obviously a lot of Thief is draped in shadow, but when you actually see it in motion, it's very cool to see him diving between these little bits of shadow and stealing from people as they're sort of out of their mind on opium, which was pretty cool. So yeah, no, it looks like a sort of major component. I think something they were trying to do is make the outside world really dark and then make the inside areas really warm and vibrant to sort of invite you in to this, smut and greed.
So there are a few screenshots I wanted you to shed your knowledge on. This being one of them. What's going on here?
Yeah, so in the demo, while he's going through the House of Blossoms, he's sort of going through these back rooms that he managed to find, like a secret back room, and he's going through all these corridors and he's spying and voyeurizing people as they're sort of getting down and dirty in the bordello. And this medallion he finds, he actually uses his focus eye to see hidden glyphs all over the walls, which he can then enter into this medallion like a decoder ring. When he gets all four, glyphs in, spins out like this with some sort of magical power. Now, not really sure why, but it's obviously going to be a sort of big crux of the story moving forward.
So it's a narrative element that they haven't explained yet?
No, not at all. To be honest, all they've said is that he's returning to the city, and obviously he wants to take whatever's yours is mine, was the tagline in the trailer. So not explained yet, but it's obviously supernatural elements are going to play in heavily.
And this screenshot obviously shows him with some of the loot. How does the general stealing of things work in this game, especially compared to previous games?
Yeah, it's just really, really smooth and fluid, to be completely honest. So, he's walking around, it's just a button press, you just sort of grab whatever's in front of him. So for this one, for example, he'd be examining it, and then with the press of the back button, for example, you'd be able to pull up your sort of bag and inspect the loot. It also gives you a little readout of how much it's worth, so that you can then later either fence it off or stick it in your hideout to sort of show off to the world.
And I know lockpicking is something that games either get right or just incredibly, horribly, drastically wrong. How does it work in this then?
To be honest, it reminded me a little bit of the Elder Scrolls Oblivion lockpicking system. You basically you put your lockpick in, you just have to move the tumblers up until they click into place. It is quite a slow process, and you can hear all the sound around you. So if you suddenly hear a door slam behind you, you might need to back out, luckily he does have that focus ability that lets him speed up the lockpicking process. So, while it's quite slow and meandering, if you activate focus, the tumblers basically fall into place. So that's a pretty cool feature.
What's the limit to you using focus? Because it seems like the one solution for everything.
Yeah, focus is a resource that you sort of gain. They haven't said how, but it is something that you can gain as you're playing. They've also said that you might be able to turn it off in the menu if players want a really hardcore experience. So it is an optional experience, but it is there to sort of help players get through the world.
So as one of the first members of the media to see this game in action, I mean, is there anything else about it that really stood out to you or that you want to mention?
Yeah, to be honest, it just looks really, really fluid and fantastic to see in motion. It is one of the first next-gen only games. They've confirmed it's coming for PS4 and then whatever PC and obviously whatever Microsoft pull out of the bag. They've actually said that Wii U's not on the table. So sorry, Nintendo owners, I guess. But yeah, no, it just looks great. I mean, we saw one bit where Garrett's running through the streets and it sort of looked like an industrial Mirror's Edge, just really, really fast, really slick, and he's diving over tables and under carts, and it just looks really great and really fun to play.